Merry Christmas, friends. It is so good to be here today. I don't know if this is true. I think it might be true every year, but maybe some years more than others, where the events of the world weigh heavy on our hearts. And even as we think about coming to this day of celebration and praising God, we also hold the things that are going on in the world heavy with us. And maybe that's how Christmas Eve is supposed to be, a time of joy and praising God, but also not letting our hearts be far from the people in the world who are longing for the peace and the joy and the love and the hope that we celebrate this time of year. So as we celebrate this morning, let us also be in prayer for those around the world who are struggling. Christmas is one of my favorite times of year. How about anyone else? Yeah, one. Two. Okay, thank you. There we go. Okay, let's try it again. Now, it's okay if it's not. Don't raise your hand. I'm not asking you to lie, but I think probably more than one person. Who thinks Christmas is an amazing time of year and loves it? There, that seems more honest. All right, fantastic. I often find myself, like the Christmas Carol, wishing for a white Christmas, dreaming of a white Christmas. Chris, our custodian, actually showed me that at 10 a.m. snow was in the forecast, but I'm looking out the window and it has not come. But this year, I have actually been thinking a lot about summertime and having some longing for one of my very favorite places on earth, Camp Indianola, which is one of the United Methodist camps, and it's located on Puget Sound, right across the water from Seattle. At Camp Indianola, on a good day, you can see the Seattle skyline, you can see Mount Rainier, and if you're lucky enough to get to paddleboard or kayak and you go out into the Sound, you can sometimes see the Olympic Mountains. It is just one of the most stunning places on earth. I often feel like I find a peace there that I don't find anywhere else. And maybe that's why I've been dreaming about it this year, because I'm particularly longing for peace in our world. And so the place where I find it has been coming to my mind. It is a place where you can be set apart from the world and immersed in nature. When I've been at Indianola, I've seen otters frolicking in the water, great blue herons majestically preening in the shallows, and high above the camp, a bald eagle pair makes its nest every year. And if you're lucky, one of them will swoop down while you're on the beach, and you can see just the great expanse of that wingspan. I've been going to Camp Indianola for many summers, often as a camp pastor, and I thought I knew all of its secrets. But a few years ago, I was there for high school camp. Now, usually I sign up to be with the littles, even middle schoolers, but high schoolers, they kind of scare me sometimes, right? And so I had not been there at high school camp, but Camp Indianola has this tradition that when you get to high school camp, you get to go night kayaking. They don't take out the middle schoolers. They don't take out, of course, the littles night kayaking. Only high schoolers get to go. And I was there, and I was invited to go night kayaking. And I didn't want to go. Right, isn't that sad? I almost missed out. But I was there with my daughter, and she really wanted to go, and she didn't want to go if I didn't go, and so she talked me into it. Now, you have to go out really late because in July, the sun doesn't set until about 10. And so you don't go night kayaking until about 10:30, which is way too late for me. I'm usually asleep by 10:30, which is why I didn't want to go. But you have to go out at 10:30 to go night kayaking, because at Camp Indianola, night kayaking isn't so much about being out on a kayak on the water at night, although that is a really cool experience. Night kayaking at Camp Indianola is about seeing the bioluminescence in the water. And you can't see the bioluminescence in the water unless it's dark. And so at 10:30 at night, we hauled our kayaks down to the beach, and the guides had the flashlights on their heads, to illuminate just enough so we could see and get in the water. and we pushed out into the dark sound. And as we started paddling, our guides turned their flashlights off, and so we were in the pitch black. And with every stroke of the paddle would light up with the bioluminescence. And if you trailed your hand in the water, you could see that we are made of stardust because your hand would just light up. Now, we were out with a bunch of high schoolers, and so, you can imagine that there was a lot of chaos and talking and bumping of kayaks and all those things. But when we got out far enough, the guides had us circle up, and they said, I want everyone to be quiet and stop bumping your boats together, and we're just going to sit here in this moment of reverie. It's not easy to get a group of high schoolers, especially when you're kayaking at night, to be quiet. But they did it. And we were out on a night. This doesn't happen very often in the Pacific Northwest. We were out on a night where there was not a cloud in the sky, and there was actually no moon either, which makes the bioluminescence even brighter. And as we sat there, not bumping kayaks and not talking, the water stilled. And the most amazing things started happening. It turns out there are fish zipping through the water all the time, but you can't see them during the day. But at night, the bioluminescence lights them up, and so you can see these trails through the water as the fish zip by your kayak. And because the water was so still and the night sky didn't have a single cloud, we could see all of the constellations in the sky as well. And there came a moment where with the zipping fish that were leaving trails of light in the water and the Milky Way up above us with those trails of stars, the sky and the water became one. And you almost couldn't tell the difference between what was below you and what was above you. It was heaven kissing earth. And we sat there in that moment, and it was holy in a way that is beyond words to describe, as the beauty of nature from below and from above came together in this mystery of wonder. It was amazing. I don't know that I've ever witnessed anything quite like it. I felt almost in that moment like the shepherds on the night when they heard of Jesus being born. These shepherds who heard these tidings of great joy in their fields on the night that Jesus came. The heavens on that night were proclaiming their splendor too, coming down in the multitude of angels who proclaimed to the shepherds that they should not be afraid because the angels were bringing tidings of great joy. And somehow this message of heaven came down to the shepherds on that Christmas night, and they heard and received the glory of God. It was another moment of heaven come down to earth. And then when the shepherds traveled to Mary and the baby, I just wonder, what were they expecting to find? They were told that the Messiah, the Savior of the world, was born. Did they think that they would find a king? Did they think that perhaps he would glow the way our hands did when we dipped them in the water and the bioluminescence was all over them? Were they thinking it would be a magical figure there in the manger? I wonder, were they prepared to find a human baby, born with the same blood and water as the rest of humanity? Did they expect to encounter the power and might of heaven on that holy night? Were they shocked to see an infant, probably hungry, maybe nursing, swaddled in those bands of cloth? God comes to us with both the glory of heaven and the messiness of our life. Angels declared his birth, and shepherds in the field heard the news. They traveled to a manger of all places to find a human child born of a human mother, wrapped as every mother has wrapped her child. It is cosmic and earthy, heavenly and vulgar, all at the same time. It is the story that we need because we will never witness heaven come to earth outside of the realities of our world. Maybe someday when God redeems all of creation, we will. But in the meantime, what we get is moments of seeing heaven here on earth, but never apart from the realities of our life. Somewhere right now, a mother is worrying about whether or not her child will be harmed by falling bombs. A father is grieving the loss of a child due to a fentanyl overdose. A refugee family is somewhere trying to cross a border and holding tight to the hands of their children, lest they be lost in the dark of night. Somewhere, a family is sheltering in a cardboard box, hoping that rain or snow doesn't soak through the flimsy shelter. And at the same time, there are people gathered in a church praying that God will touch the hearts of people and maybe stop the bombs from falling, bring peace into a war zone, get the paramedic there to the scene soon enough that the Narcan can give a second chance at life. Somewhere, there's a refugee organization preparing a warm bed and a hot meal for the next family to cross the border and seek shelter. And somewhere, someone is holding the hand of a houseless child and giving them a dry blanket, cooking them a warm meal, and offering to help find stable housing. Heaven touches down to earth in the most unlikely of places and comes not as we expect it, but the way that we need it. When we were kayaking on the Puget Sound and we had that collective moment of awe and wonder, as we witnessed heaven and earth mingling together in the beauty of the water and the bioluminescence and the stars above us, we all wanted that moment to last forever. But after just a few moments, one of the fish that were zipping through the water that were so lovely, the fish jumped into a kayak. Unfortunately, the fish didn't jump into the kayak of one of the leaders or the adults. The fish jumped in the kayak of one of the teenagers. And you can guess what happened next. What happened? Yeah, exactly. The silence was broken by the flopping of the fish in that kayak and the screeching of a teenage girl who had a fish flopping in her kayak. Well, one scream, because, who knows why she was screaming, one scream just led to another scream, and pretty soon all of the teenagers were like, ah, what's happening? And then the one who had the fish in her kayak was screaming, get the fish out! And then the leader was trying to paddle over and get the fish out, and, chaos just ensued after that. But that's how it is, isn't it? We all know some kind of moment like the one I described. I'm guessing if you close your eyes, you can picture it. A time when it felt as if the world stood still. And you were in the presence of the holy. And if you could have, you would have dwelled there forever. But I'm also guessing it didn't take long before life interceded. Maybe not through the screams of a teenager with a fish flopping in her kayak, but nonetheless, life continues. And so we get these glimpses, these moments of the holy, of heaven come down to earth. But they come to us in the messiness of our lives. Life continues and it erupts all around us. This is how it is supposed to be. Jesus didn't come into a world that was already heaven. Jesus came into the world and brought heaven down to us. Jesus came to a mom giving birth. I'm guessing that cries of labor echoed through the manger. Maybe Joseph was worried about Mary and the birthing pains and chewed his nails down to the point where they bled. The innkeeper maybe wanted to shush Mary so that other guests wouldn't be disturbed by her cries of labor. The shepherds, they just went into the field expecting nothing more than a long interrupted night of tending their flock. Herod, the ruler of Israel, sat at the helm of power, perhaps enjoying a lavish feast. Into this world, God comes as Jesus. And for a moment, all stands still and all is silent, and heaven and earth touch, and the mystery of unending love breaks forth into our world. The shepherds see the angel and hear the good news. Mary ponders the revelation that they bring to her, and perhaps Joseph breathes a sigh of relief and wonder at the tiny child wrapped in the bands of cloth. It is a holy moment, heaven come to earth. But I'm sure then Jesus starts crying and is hungry and ready to nurse. The donkey probably brays at all of the noise. A guest from the inn might then shout at the donkey to shut up. I lived across the street from a donkey. I'm sure someone from the inn shouted at the donkey to shut up. Life carries on. But also, our world witnesses the holiness of God's presence with us when we have the eyes to see it all around us. The Christmas story is told again and again, year after year, and sometimes it's preached from a pulpit. But more often than not, it is witnessed in nature. It comes in acts of kindness, in hope that cannot be extinguished. It comes in the person who cooks the warm meal for that homeless family, the paramedic who brings fentanyl at the right moment, the refugee organization preparing to receive a family so much like our Holy Family. When a child is born, when the night sky and the bioluminescence seem to be one, when a telescope sends us pictures of stars we have not yet seen, when the fighting in a war zone pauses, when someone holds the hand of someone who's dying, when a child's cry is hushed by a gentle hug, that is the Christmas story come to us again and again. It is a story that has been written in the stars since ancient times of God come to God's people, God come to dwell among us, to be with us, even in the mess of our lives. And just as we cannot know the unfathomable depths of what is in the ocean, or we have no idea really the wonders that the galaxies hold. Did you see that NASA found a group of stars that look like a Christmas tree? Did anyone see that? This is like, yes. Things we have no idea about. Mysteries we have not yet uncovered and maybe never will exist in this world, and we may not fully understand them, but we don't need to in order to receive the gift that is given to us. So just as we might not understand how God comes to us as a human being, we can still receive the gift of heaven come to earth because it is here with us. And that gift emerges in moments of holiness, and it invites us to have eyes to see it in those moments, but it also comes in the midst of life. It comes in the scream of that teenager with a fish flopping in her kayak. It comes when the children cry out in the middle of worship and we get to hear their voices. It comes, and may we receive it again and again. Amen.